I guess I was involved as a young person. I was working on the docks. And I guess my real involvement with art came about in trying to understand what was going on. I was studying a lot. And I guess the Museum of Modern Art became a place where I began to go. And it's a joke, but it turns out it's quite true. There were nicer girls there. And I was about 14, 15. Yeah. And it was the first time I'd found places where you could go when you weren't working, where you could talk about the things you were reading and the things you were interested in with the girl that you were trying to take home and sleep with. And I began to look at things, and I discovered Mondrian and I discovered Pollock, and that began to make sense to me, and I began to understand about this idea of a worldview. And so about 14, 15, just about when I was graduating from high school, 15 and a half, I made a decision I would be an artist. I think the only hope at this point to comprehend the kind of life that we're leading is to essentially understand art in its relation to the society. Art becomes now the last point. You don't need a certificate to be an artist. You don't need a license. Nobody can come along and say, you are thrown out of the Academy of Artists. That just means you're not a teacher anymore. Doesn't mean you're not an artist. The artist is the person who will question the relationships of this object to that object to such an extent that if they can find another relationship, if they can step apart and step aside from the metaphors that we're living with, they can present that, and it becomes a method for other people to make their own metaphor, to live their own life, not dependent upon history. And that's the idea of dream time and real time. I realized this when you looked at the equivocation of dream time and digital time space. Digital time space is dream time, because every single thing is an assumption. You have to believe in the assumption before you can believe in the time space. And that's a dream. But art is not about dream. Art is about real time. Art is about the immediate central perception and the immediate central dislocation, displacement. When you look at a configuration, that could be a painting, a drawing, a video, it doesn't matter. It's a relationship. And if that relationship does not depend upon history, it depends only upon itself for you to be able to understand it and use it, it's probably art. Then it's an interesting idea, and I think that the body of work I've been trying to do now, which is about here and now, now and then, that's the piece that I'm showing. That's the first time I'm showing that in Tokyo. I started to show in Amsterdam a piece in a group show about the idea of past, present, and future. That the past and the future are exactly the same. Because in fact, we're just imagining that we remember, or we're imagining what it's going to be. Present is not an imagination, the present is reality. And I'm trying to make art that functions in its own reality, so that when it passes from one generation to the next, each generation comes with their own needs and desires. The work has no metaphor. We're sitting here with a brand new Sony camera, which is fascinating me, and we're talking. Business people would tell you were silly. There's no such thing as a specifically Japanese camera, or a specifically German camera, or a specifically this. It's silly. There are people that are formed that bring a certain kind of a knowledge from their own background into the making of art, but it's like medicine. There is no difference between an injection, acupuncture, or faith healing if it works. And art is something that has to work. And it will work any place. As what it is. It may not have the same name, it may not have the same material value, but it will work any place, or else it's not art.